moment. Brett Cullen is a distinguished actor whose career spans over 4 decades. He's a proud alumnus of Madison High School and the University of Houston, who he never forgets when you talk about his career. On screen, you know him in such roles as Thomas Wayne in Joker, Dan Fix on Falcon Crest, Governor Ray Sullivan in The West Wing, and most recently as Senator Sam Kirkland in Netflix Ransom Canyon. Please welcome a UH Distinguished Alumni Award winner and a friend of mine, Brett Cullen. Hello there, Brett.
Good morning, Ernie, and God bless Pope Leo the 13th.
Amen.
So what do you think? Did you see that coming?
I was having coffee, waiting to come upstairs to do this interview, and all of a sudden the white smoke came out. I was on CNN, and then as soon as they announced it, I came up and came on because I figured I'm going to be late.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm very excited. It's very historic. It's a beautiful moment that we have the first American Pope. And 13 is my lucky number, so that was exciting.
Yay,
So,
and you were an altar boy, too, in your earlier
I was
days.
an altar boy for 5 years at Corpus Christi Catholic Church over on Stella Link.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
this has a distinct connection to you in the fact that Catholicism is your area of religion.
Well, it's how I was raised. I don't really attend Catholic church any longer.
Mhm.
I do go to church. I consider myself more a Christian than I do affiliated with a particular religion.
Yeah.
But I love Pope Francis. I love what he stood for and how he spoke for the people. And I'm hoping Leo does the same.
It looks like it will be a continuation of that. But we're here to chat about you right now. So we're happy for the new Pope, but we're also happy for Brett joining us. I guess where I would start with, every time I think, Brett's had his career, he's done, you pop back up with something else. And now Ransom Canyon. You just won't stop, will you?
Well, actors don't retire. They just quit hiring you and they keep hiring you. So.
A lot of people are in love with Ransom Canyon. And I was curious, you have worked in this business, as we said, 4 decades. You were on a very popular soap opera, a primetime soap, I should say, Falcon Crest, and now Ransom Canyon. I'm curious the difference in the approach to these continuing dramas as the technology has changed, the delivery has changed, the audience's attention span changes. What do you see different in the way we do these basically primetime dramas today?
Well, I think that the difference, if you're going to use the analogy of Falcon Crest versus this show, is, it's different sort of aspect of things. I mean, Falcon Crest was about California and the wine industry and the families revolving around that. And this is more about ranching in Texas and, a little bit of Friday Night Lights thrown in there with the kids and the football and all that stuff. So in terms of technology, it's massive. I mean, when we did Falcon Crest, we'd shoot 12, 13 pages a day. On this, you'd shoot 5, 6 pages a day. And there was more care given to it because when I went on to Falcon Crest, I think it was the 5th or 6th season when I joined that cast. And this is a new show. So it's beautifully shot. I mean, I don't know if you've seen it. It's beautiful locations. And it's, I watched it with my wife, who said her quote was, "What I like about this is it's palatable. It doesn't upset her.
Yeah.
It's romance, it's heartbreak, it's deviousness, but it's also got a beauty to it." So she loves the show. I really loved it. I wrote April last night, the creator, congratulating her because we've been, as of yesterday, we were number 3 on Netflix, and 3 times since it's come out, we've been number 1. So a lot of people are seeing it, and it's very exciting. And we're hoping and praying for another season or 2.
Yeah. I'm assuming that when you play characters, you learn about the world they exist in. In West Wing, you probably learned more politics and things like that. Coming and playing a Texan in Texas, are you teaching them about it more so than you're learning from that?
Not necessarily that much. That's kind of instinctive to me, just to be who I am. Being a Houston boy, and how influential my father's family, the Cullens, have been in the city and in Texas. And the difficulty for me is I'm sort of a liberal Democrat. And I'm always playing these Republicans. So I always kind of lean towards my dad when I'm doing something. It's like, oh, my dad would do that. Yeah, okay, I got you. The character is, I don't know where it's going, in terms of, like, I talked to April, and I mean, she just said, we've written some great stuff for you for season 2. And I'm like, okay, how bad am I going to be? It's like, to my son. What I mostly spoke to April and Joe about was really about the father-son relationship. I mean, no matter how contentious that relationship can be, there's still love. I mean, my father and I were polar opposites, politically and social issues. But we loved each other very much, and I miss my father. And even though I constantly would butt heads with him, and being the youngest of the family, I got away with it more than the other siblings.
Yeah.
But I love my father very much, and even when we were screaming at each other about politics or whatnot, there's love.
Yeah.
So that was my thing, is I always wanted to try and lean in that a little bit. But at some point, when you're playing sort of a baddie or not such a nice person, there's the famous quote. I was working with Gene Hackman, God bless him. And I asked him, I said, Gene, you played a lot of bad guys. It was that movie, The Replacements, I did. And I said, Martell, the character I'm playing, is not, particularly nice guy and an egotist. And I said, how do you try and find the gray area? And he looked at me and he said, why? Just be bad. It's fun.
Now, Ransom Canyon is not shot in Texas, but in New Mexico. How does that work out for you when you're trying to get into character as a Texan? You're in New Mexico.
Yeah, I put a hat on, it all works.
I got it.
But no, it is. I mean, I laugh. I was with my wife. There was one shot with someone on a kind of a cliff, beautiful tableau on a horse. And I went, well, either that's Big Bend or that's not Texas. But, it doesn't matter. It's a TV show, and it's part of it's a fantasy, Yeah. So who cares? I mean, it's like the movie Long Game I did with Quaid that we supposed to be in Del Rio, Texas, and we shot it in Bogota, Colombia. And at one point I turned to the director and I went, I feel like I'm doing Lost right now. I mean, these mountains and there's clouds hanging over us. And I said, you've been to Del Rio? And he's like, yeah, I know. I said, it's just flat and dusty. And I went, okay. He goes, but we're on a golf course, so they won't know the difference. So I went, all right, whatever.
Well, speaking of Dennis Quaid, you were just recently, and with him and Cindy Pickett and Robert Wool, and this week is Teacher Appreciation, and you were remembering somebody that impacted you from the University of Houston.
Yes, Cecil Pickett, who I always referred to as my second father, my artistic father. I miss him too. But funnily enough, he wrote a script about his childhood that Cindy now has taken and broken into. It was a film and broken into a limited 8 episode miniseries or series that we're trying to sell right now.
Oh.
So, and I'd go along on that as a producer. So.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, Cecil Pickett had an enormous impact on me. I mean, basically, I've had 2 geniuses I worked with. One was him and the other was Kim Stanley. And Kim Stanley did a documentary that just aired or was premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival. And it's the both of them. Cecil taught me one thing, which was to work Stanislavski, to work from the outside in with a little bit of Uta Hagen thrown in. And Kim made me work from the inside out. And so the combination of that has, I think, provided me with the option and the opportunity to grow and continue to grow as an actor, which is why I think I keep getting hired, because I've never thought I knew anything. I always think I'm trying to learn something.
Well, one thing you have done, and it's your connection back to U of H, is you continue to give back to the university, and you give back in lots of ways. One that is the most amazing is you bring your celeb friends, your showbiz friends back to the university to work with the students to help them develop their crafts. We've had some of them on the show as you've brought them into town, and I guess the question is your commitment to this organization.
Well, Houston, the University of Houston gave me everything. If it hadn't, I would have been just an unemployed surfer, probably working in a restaurant, waiting tables and knocking people over with my tray, because that's not my world. But I was just a surf bum and a baseball player, and I wasn't very good in school, and I discovered theater. And my brother convinced me to go into the theater department, and which I did. And as long as I had the option of changing majors, if I didn't like it, and I fell in love with it the first year. And Cecil became Mr. Pickett became my mentor.
Yeah.
So that's, and the other side of the University of Houston that I'm proud of is, if you know the history of the university, that my father's family, Hugh Roy Cullen, his uncle, built the university. Mm-hmm. And they have a huge influence there. And I think that's the only reason why they let me in. I think I had a C- after high school because my last name was Cullen, but it gave me something. And so I feel an obligation to give back. There's a funny thing. I made Robert Wool come there once when we were getting the distinguished, him and I and Dennis all got the Distinguished Alumni Award the same night.
Yep.
And I told Robert to change his flight and go teach his class. And I said, Robert, you can afford it, to change the ticket. And he did. And after we were there, Robert, if you've ever talked to him, doesn't stop talking. He can suck the air out of a room if you let him. And I'm sitting with him, and we were over off Katy Freeway at this hotel, and I'm smoking a cigar on the roof, and he leans over and looks at me, and I'm like, he's not talking. What's going on? And he finally looked at me and goes, I'm mad at you. And I said, why are you mad at me? And he goes, because you made me teach that class. And I said, why would you be mad at me? The money? And he goes, no, you made me care again. This used to be a memory.
Wow. That's
So
beautiful.
that's why
I
do it.
Is there a lot of promise? Is there a lot of promise in the students we have here for this career, do you think?
Well, I do believe so. I think that they're Sharon Ott, the new head of the theater department, who is brilliant. She's won a Tony. She ran Berkeley Rep. She's embraced, as I have, and have been trying to push the school to embrace more as the aspect of film and television that if an actor wants to work and make money and have a living, I mean, theater is the most important thing. It came before anything, but it doesn't pay as much as you're working on a TV show or shooting a movie and or doing guest shots or whatnot. I mean, a guest shot, the minimum they pay these days is like $8,000 something. You do a play and you're lucky to make that. And I don't know the rates even for Lord theaters when you're working in rep theaters and stuff, but it's not a lot. So I feel like they're moving in the right direction. I have friends of mine teaching there. You've got Victoria Burrows, who cast all the Lord of the Rings movies and is Zemeckis' casting director. She lives in Houston now because of the thing that you can work anywhere. She lives in Houston, so she teaches once a year there for a couple of weeks. And then Richard and Elizabeth, her friends who are British, teach self-taping and voiceover. And they come twice a year. And I told all the students, I said, this is the most important class you'll ever take. If you're going to move into any other world besides theater, you have to have this talent or this ability to be able to do that, because that's how you're going to get jobs, because you don't go in a room anymore, very rarely. I mean, I just got cast in a film. I'm going to start at the end of May, shooting in May and July with Nate Bargatze. Do you know who that is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Comedian.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm playing his dad, and it's a really funny movie, and it's a Sony film. And but I self-taped. My wife shot me on this iPad, sent it in, then boom, they called up. My manager said, "Yeah, you got the job." So
yeah, but they can probably look you up and know who you are. It's not a hard one.
I know.
In a little bit, we're going to go in on our show into current obsessions. And I know our producer here, one of his current obsessions, he hasn't stopped talking about it since we said you were going to be on the show, was your very first film called Stewardess School.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So for Jim, please share a story.
Well, I'll tell you this. I want to ask him, how old was he when he saw
it? He's 12 years old. 12 years old.
12 years old.
Well, I know why he liked it at 12. I was talking to Robert Wool yesterday, as a matter. He said, it's so weird. People like things. And I said, I had some Teamsters come up to me one day on a set going, man, we saw the greatest movie last night, Stewardess School. You were such a great film. And I looked at them and went, what is wrong with you?
That's how we look at Jim all the time, too, and wonder that.
Yeah.
Brett, thank you.
Well, no, it's a fun film, but, there's a lot of girls with no tops on and,
Yep.
me and Donnie Most and Bryn Bohr. The cast was hysterical, but still, it's like it was supposed to replace what was it, the cop franchise, the bad cops and the comedy. What was the name of it? Anyway, but the head of the studio took one look at it and just said, not on my dime.
Well, Brett, thank you for moving on beyond Stewardess School and giving us so much good work.
Yes.
Ransom Canyon still out there. Congratulations. Hoping for a second season. Fingers crossed. And Brett, thank you for always being available.
All right, Ernie, take care. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it, man.
Thank you.